Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to my recap of the premiere episode of She's Gotta Have It on Netflix. Can I tell you that I love this? It's amazing from start to finish. If you like the first episode, it only gets better from here. I'm biased because the movie She's Gotta Have It, it had a profound impact on my life. It changed my life so much that my first book, A Belle in Brooklyn, was inspired by She's Gotta Have It. As a 10-year-old girl raised in the DC suburbs, I didn't know anyone who wasn't a doctor, a lawyer, worked for the federal government. And just for clarity, I'm speaking about Black people. Everyone I knew who was a professional was involved in politics. I was on the law school track since the day I was born. Seeing that film, this was my introduction to Brooklyn. I didn't know Brooklyn. Literally, I did not know the borough of Brooklyn existed. This was my introduction to young Black creatives. It was the first time I'd seen that world, and I decided at like 10, like I wanted to go to Brooklyn and I wanted to be God. And for a while, I was able. It was every bit as awesome as it was depicted in the film. In so many different times in my life, this movie has popped up and it's been an inspiration. And I know it's like super emotional. Huge thank you to Spike Lee. The 2017 Nola is just as awesome as, I want to say, like 1986 Nola. The first episode is very much an homage to the original She's Gotta Have It. It's reintroducing the characters that we came to love from the film. You've got Nola, who is still brown and still natural and wonderfully beautiful. DeWanda Wise is buttons cute. Her little nose ring was a little distracting to me at first, but I got used to it. Nola's eyebrows? Is that microblading? Is that makeup? Like, we need to discuss these brows. Nola's still Nola. She's independent. She's quirky. The first episode starts the same way the film does. It's Nola. She's in her bed, and she's telling us who she is. Nola says very upfront that she's not like everybody else, and she doesn't want to be like everybody else. She's very clear that she's not a freak. She doesn't believe in labels. This Nola is far more fleshed out. Like, we actually see her working. Brooklyn also gets an update. 1986 Brooklyn is much different than 2017 Brooklyn, which is much different than Brooklyn when I moved there in 2002. Gentrification has taken over most of the borough. In the film, Fort Greene it appears to be predominantly Black. It's like a Black artist enclave. Now, you'd be hard pressed to find, and there absolutely are Black people who own and live in Fort Greene. But when you walk down that main strip on DeKalb, there's not many Black faces. Clarinda refers to gentrification as hipster imperialism, which is perhaps the best way I have ever heard it described. Like, you live in a neighborhood all your life. You live in a neighborhood 10 years, and someone who just moved into the neighborhood last week want to ask you, what are you doing here? What the are you doing here? So the photos that are shown of Brooklyn, it shows the contrast between the Brooklyn of the 1980s and then the Brooklyn of 2017. So much of this story is the more things change, the more they stay the same. There's the montage that Lee does on street harassment that also appeared in the first film. The street harassment has gotten so much worse. In the original montage, it's men and they're trying to holler at Nola and they're very lewd. But in this version, I mean, they're just like extra. There's more men of different colors. There's more men of different ages. There are women. Shout out to Clay Davis and his shit. Our society has just become a lot more lewd. I mean, you can tell that by, we elected a man to the highest office in the land who brags about grabbing women by their cho-cha. One thing that hasn't changed, well, I mean, I guess the skyline has changed, but those views from the Brooklyn waterfront, my favorite place in the whole city, it's just as beautiful now as it was back then, the first time I saw it, and She's Gotta Have It. I love the way that the film and the show romanticize Brooklyn. So the guys have all gotten an update. First, we meet Jamie, who is, I think, very much more handsome than the Jamie in the original. The new Jamie is snackish. He's also married. It makes the whole storyline very much more complicated. At 27, you know better than to hump married men. We've never said Nola wasn't messy. Like, it's part of what makes the story interesting. Like, you humping 3 dudes. So here's a gag, though. Jamie and Nola's brown sex looked amazing. All that melanin just makes for magic, you know? I don't like that he's married, but he was throwing it down though. I don't even feel right saying that. Ugh, this is going to be tricky to talk about. In the original, I was always rooting for Jamie, except until the end, out of the three guys, because Jamie was the only one that acted like he had any sense. There's no way I can ever root for him. There's also Mars. I totally get why Nola hangs out with him. He doesn't have a lot of money. He's a goofball. He's a good time. He makes her laugh and they have a lot of fun together. And then there's Greer. Greer's bisexual, right? I think this Greer is fine. I didn't think the 1980 something Greer was fine. Greer is obnoxious. I don't care how fine you are. He's gorgeous, but he's such a dick. I couldn't deal. You can't be that level of narcissist and me interact with you. I can't. It'd be the Sahara. I couldn't get moist for that. Couldn't do it. These three men are incredibly flawed, but together they make one interesting guy. There's a commentary there that we don't discuss enough about the dating options for women, specifically Black women in New York and beyond. There's a lot of crazy, unstable people in the world who are dating when they really need to be on a therapist's couch seeking help. Nola also has the brown sex with Greer. And this dude, one, he took forever to take his clothes off. Nola was sitting there waiting for him to get undressed. I would have grabbed my toy and turned over and pleased myself. Then he crawls across the floor and starts growling. Greer said to Nola, "I got a lion in my pocket and it's ready to roar." I would have packed up my cho-cha and left my own house. I would have locked myself in my own bathroom. No, you can't touch this. And then you hump like a rabbit. Y'all heard that fool call his own name? That would have been my first and last time. I wouldn't even let him complete the act. I'd be like, "Sir, I'm going to put my robe on. You need to see yourself out while I'm taking this good shower to wash the you off me." Greer can go. Post-sex, that fool sat there and took selfies. I hate men that take selfies. If you meet a man and his Instagram page is full of selfies, something wrong with his ass. Personality-wise, he's worse than the married man. Like, obviously, Jamie, there's a moral conundrum there, but Greer, no. Here's another change that I really appreciate. In the original, she had a roommate, Clorinda, and they had a falling out for the same reason depicted here. Then Nola had too many dudes in and out the house. I don't think Nola ever hung out with another woman in the first one. Like, she goes to see Clorinda, and Clorinda's like playing the harp or something. And then there was Opal, but Opal was trying to hit on her. Opal wasn't really a friend per se. But in this version, Nola has friends, including a token white girl. And here's when I knew that this show was going to be different than all of the other I'm a single woman living in New York and this is my life shows. They're at brunch and they're talking about work before they talk about men. And I think it's Clorinda who asked Nola something about her sex life. And she was like, "No, I'm not going to be that cliche that talks about my sex life while drinking expensive cocktails." That's when I fully bought into whatever was about to happen. You know what else I loved about this? The music. Whoever's picking the beats, you did a good job. To you, kudos. A little raise for you, a little extra for season 2 because you did a good job. So it's Nola's birthday, and she shares the same birthday with Malcolm X, which is May 19th, just FYI. And Jamie shows up. He shows up with some gifts for her, some art supplies, and they have the brown sex, and they're laying in bed eating chocolate cake. And Nola's phone rings. I would not have answered the phone. Nola's all unbossed, unbothered, and no given self leans over and answers the phone. She rolls away from Jamie and turns her back to him, and Kiki's on the phone with Mars, who's like, "Yo, let me come smell it." I love this fool. And he knows somebody else is in the bed. He's like, "Oh, who you got over there?" Because he's laying in the bed, I'm gonna give him a pass on being perturbed that she's on the phone and answering calls from another dude. But sir, I must ask, because it seems to be a late hour, where is your wife? You're a married man. Like, how do you rightfully get perturbed with someone else about their sexual partners or who else they're dating when you got a whole wife at home? Sir, you really can't be asking nobody else how they spend their time, even when they're doing it right in front of you. You're not even separated. You still got your ring on. Jamie gets over it real quick. In addition to his art supplies and his birthday cake, he has a birthday poem for Nola. He read that, and it was really from his heart. And it wasn't a bad poem. It really wasn't. But I just can't take him seriously when, sir, you're walking around with your wedding ring on. And then it seems like Nola told Mars about it the next day. And Mars was like, "That whack. I think it's hilarious that she talks to him about Jamie. I tell you one thing Mars asked that made sense. He was like, how do you afford this apartment? Questions that need answers, because Brooklyn is expensive. Yes, ma'am, but please explain. How are you affording this like whole top floor of a brownstone situation? Because that ain't cheap. And you ain't doing that on no artist without no real job salary. And then Mars says something to her about being a freak. If she's a freak and he has sex with her, then isn't he also a freak? You're the one who's calling me asking if you could come sniff my cho-cha, and you got the nerve to call anybody else a freak. Get out of here. But luckily Mars cleaned that up well enough so he could get some. And poor Jamie. Jamie's at work blowing up Nola's phone. I'm like, sir, you ain't got no work to do? They have the stand-up sex. Mars keeps his J's on. That's the one thing I don't do. You can't keep your shoes on and have sex with me. Am I picky for drawing a line on that? I remember some dude was like, oh, can I keep my Timbs on? I know we're in Brooklyn, but absolutely not, sir. You're going to have to take your Timbs off. No, it's not going to happen. Watching Mars and Nola have sex, I was reminded of that Facebook post. I cannot remember the girl's name who wrote it, but she was like, the best orgasm of your life is the guy who puts stickers on avocados. That's Mars. After they have the brownish sex, Mars asks Nola how he compares to the other dudes. Do you really want to know the answer to that? Guys think they want to know because they think a woman is going to stroke their ego and be like, oh, baby, you're the best. In my experience, the guy who asks usually isn't. And Nola very diplomatically sidesteps, because if she was honest, I think she would probably say Jamie. And Greer, sir, I know you be humping. And he has the same question that Mars has. He wants to know, like, how do I compare to the other men in your life? I'm like, why are y'all asking this? She's been honest with you. She dates other people. Y'all also date other people. Jamie got a whole wife. Mars was on the phone with Nola. She wouldn't let him come over. He hung up and started dialing somebody else. Greer, ain't no way you just having sex with her. Look at you. And you got the nerve to be like, oh, Nola, you're a sex addict. So are you. And then Nola was like, you know what? If I'm a sex addict, I should stop f***ing you. He was like, oh, no. Let's not get carried away here. Okay. So now, it's not a problem if she's a sex addict as long as she's having sex with just you. You ever notice when you're dating, especially when you're dating more than one person, the men in your life all seem to go crazy at the same time? Did y'all sync up? Did your cycles sync? In this case, Jamie also wants to know about the other people that Nola's seeing. Why are you not seeing your wife? Where is your wife? I'm sick of these men. These ain't even my men. Nola goes over to Clorinda's house, go see her bestie. They're laying around having girl talk. Clorinda mentioned something about Mars. They used to date or something. No parts of me sees her with Mars. She said that Nola broke code by dating him. But they talk about Nola and her men, and Nola clarifies that Jamie is not a sugar daddy. She talks about Greer's, which I guess does it for her. Nothing about that sex looked appealing to me. And they wrap it up real quick. Nola leaves Clorinda's, and as she's walking down the street, she is street harassed. It's the "Hey yo ma," it's the "Hey sexy," and she keeps walking because it's just one of those things you learn to live with as a woman who lives in the city with any kind of foot traffic. It doesn't matter if you have your cleavage hanging out. It doesn't matter if you have on a parka. Hollering at women just for the sake of it is just some favored male pastime. But of course, no dudes ever admit to doing that. The guy actually comes up and approaches her, which is, in my experience, rare. I've been grabbed, I've been spit on, but I've never been like yoked up the way that Nola was. And she's rightfully terrified. She fights the guy off. And as she's running away, like, he disrespects her. You go yell after a woman that her stinks. Then he calls after her that she's a black. Is there like a rule book for disrespecting women? Just what does this do for men's egos? Because so many men do it. I mean, no one ever takes accountability and says, yes, I have street harassed women. Like, you see a woman minding her own business and you just call after her and call her out her name for what? Is it because white people treat you like and you don't really have a lot of power in the world, so you try to exert that over women because you see women as less powerful than you, at least physically? Can someone explain the logic to me of that? But Nola goes home. She's visibly shaken. She's crying, even though it was a very triggering sort of scene. I really liked it because a lot of women have had that moment. Like, even if you haven't been yoked up by a dude, or you haven't been spit on, or just somebody just calling you like just like a black, like, it's just like, what did I do? You know you didn't do anything, but it's like, I didn't do anything to invite it, so there's really nothing I can do to prevent it. But like, why does this happen to me? Yeah, God, this show brings up so much. In reaction to her assault, Nola starts a street campaign. She actually uses her art to heal herself, and it's tied to Black Lives Matter. And I really, really appreciated that, because I think so often when we talk about Black Lives Matter, people picture Black men being mistreated or harmed or killed by the police. Like, you have to start a whole separate campaign, like say her name, to remind people that Black women are abused by police as well. You can't say that you're for Black people and not be for Black women. Like, that whole meshing of that together was really great to me. I thought that was an awesome statement. I know some people really don't like the way Spike Lee shoves a message in your face, but subtle doesn't always work for our people. Sometimes you just got to make it plain and yell, wake up, on a bullhorn in the middle of the yard at 6 a.m. in order to get the point across. One more thing I will say, because I know this is like super long. I like the way that they used assault here versus the way that they did it in the film. If you haven't seen the film, please stop watching right now, because I'm going to do a spoiler. In the film, Jamie assaults Nola, and that becomes the catalyst for her wanting to be in a relationship with him, which was just bizarre. And Spike Lee has retroactively said that if he had to do it over again, he would have removed that scene. In this version, she's not assaulted by one of her lovers. She's assaulted by a stranger. And it's not the catalyst for her to stop being whatever she's being and go be a whole different person. It's a catalyst for her to start a movement and spread awareness and fight back in some way. So I appreciate that this character is more assertive, more active, more involved, more in tune with herself, and then also that she wasn't assaulted, because it just got so weird in the last film. You could just write a whole, and several people did. I think Bell Hooks actually wrote like this really great essay called "Whose Pussy Is This?" as a result of the assault scene in the first film. Well, boys and girls, I think that's finally everything. So thank you, as always, for tuning in. And if you like what you watch, please subscribe if you haven't already. And I think I'll see you soon.